Hey, what's up, guys? This video's about the good old days. The good old days. Now, if you don't know or not, I mention this every now and then. I'm a huge fan of the '80s oldies. The pop music. I'm a huge fan of it. So every now and then, I'll pretty much go back and make a list or watch my list on YouTube. These old music videos in the '80s. Even in the early '90s, but it's solely stuck on the '80s for the most. 98% of it is this old '80s pop music. And I come to realize, like, man, you know what? These women that's in these videos are just not fine. They're just beautiful. Now, some people probably like, oh, yeah, those are the singers. They're supposed to be beautiful, but it's not that. It's just I'm looking at, obviously, the lead singers. Of course, it's not just women. It's the guys too. But I'm just looking at the women in these all these music videos. It's not just the singer. It's just I'm looking at the women in the crowd. The women in the background. It's like, man, these women are just beautiful. Now I'm gonna give it all the way up to the '90s. So '90s all the way back, '90s and all the way back. The women's just beautiful. Like, man, not saying it's not none now, but it's not so many of them, because you have all these women that getting surgery. They constantly putting on makeup, which is just literally destroying their skin. They're destroying their hair. They're not natural. These are natural women that's in these music videos. You got they of course they have some makeup on, right? They have some makeup, but it's not like, oh, you look like a totally different person without the makeup. No, they just put enough makeup just to compliment them. It's just a little makeup, not even enough. It's just a little makeup. But I'm like, damn, the guys that was living, well, they're still alive, right? But the guys that was in that time period, in the '70s, well, all the way back. I'm talking about these guys still alive. That was in the '80s and '90s, and I'm like, man, I was around all these beautiful women, man. Like, and, of course, back then it was normal to be slim. Be slim. You got a little extra million bones, but obese, that's pretty much a punishment. That's, no one supported that back in the day. They frowned upon, frowned on women who was just fatbacks. So the fact that they was all slim and they was pretty, well, beautiful, and back then, I know they had like breast implants. That was it back then. They either got breast implants or that was it. They didn't do anything else if they didn't get breast implants. The ones that did, but other than that, it's like, man, I'm looking at all these women. God dang, the mannerism, they're all feminine. And I'm like, man, the guys back in them days, they had it good. Now, hopefully, they still have somebody, back then, or it's this train go by. Yeah, so hopefully they still with that person they was back then, married or something. But yeah, them guys had it good back then. Now, that what we have going on in today's society, it's all jacked up. You don't know if it's a dude or a woman. You don't know if it's a dude or a woman, right? So I'm gonna tell you guys, do that background check, man. I need to see some high school pictures, middle school pictures, birth certificate. I need to see it all. So, but yeah, so I'm just looking at it. I'm like, man, that's just amazing. So I always say, if I had a time machine, I would go back in the '80s, and obviously, it's always a bad side to it, right? I wouldn't necessarily just interact with anybody. I would just go there to watch, to watch these concerts in person and, possibly get some photo ops. But other than that, I wouldn't go back and check, because I don't want to alter the future, right? That's just, in a perfect world, you can go back and alter the past, and then the future will be great, but you can't do that. It's going to be a pro and a con to everything you do, right? So me sticking to the time machine rules, I literally would go back just to watch these, this would be in concert and possibly meet some of these artists, get some photo ops or whatever. And that's pretty much it. And I'll come back to my current time. But again, just want to put that out there. And I'm gonna say this too. A lot of them women still got, so it's normally, especially, these women, I don't know, in the 60s, right? 60s and up, late 50s, 60s and up. They still look good, because they've been like that all their life. Like, they grew up, they, of course back then, they had real food. So they had real food. Their parents constantly told them to watch their weight. They figured. So they've been raised to be that way. So even now they still living like that. They still eating the same. They still watching their weight, they figure and stuff like that. And a lot of women, they still around, and they still beautiful. Those are women you be seeing like, man, all the way she got it going on. That's the women I'm talking about. You know, you guys see them out there in the supermarket or, you know, just out and about in life, right? You seem like, man, that's an older woman looking good. That's them. They still keep up with themselves. Now, granted, you got some that fell off, right? It's never going to be 100% on anything, right? But majority of women still look that way. You know what I mean? Matter of fact, when I watch some of these videos on YouTube, and they have a family gathering or something like that, and I'll look and I'll see the daughter or the son's mom. I'm like, God, she still got it going on. Yeah, that's some women back in the day. They just continue to take care of themselves. They don't eat a lot. You know what I mean? They just really take care of themselves. So this still goes on to this day. But you know, it's just one of them things. Like, man, them guys had it going. They had it good back in the day. You know, I'm not saying it's not women like that now, but let's be honest. But the average woman don't take care of themselves. They, you already know what I'm getting at. They all fat bags. They fat bags, and they had tattoos back then. You know, I haven't seen any chicks. They probably did. I don't know, but they did probably some little small little tattoo or something that's hidden on their body somewhere. But you know, they all fat bags. They all got tattoos, all these piercings. You know, the colored hair. It's just, I mean, they had that too, but they didn't have all that going on, right? It was their personality, but it's just like they have all this extra stuff going on that's just making them look terrible. That makes them look terrible. So I don't know. I kind of wonder, like, you know what? I wonder if we ever gonna go back to that. But they always say time tends to repeat itself. So I don't know. Maybe, you know, obviously not in my generation or, you know, generation behind me. Maybe in the generation after that. I don't know. You know, at some point you don't even keep going one way. It's, you'll eventually be in, it's a circle, right? So I don't know. Hopefully that, you know, these women start to go back to how they grandparents were, or even their parents, you know, back, you know, their mom back in the day. That'd be nice. But you know, a lot of times, you know, some things may not go back to, you know, I guess to that normal, right? Because this is whether we want to accept it or not, this is the new normal. You know, the average woman's fat, she got tattoos, a whole bunch of kids, just running around, and you know what I mean, masculine. So I don't know, but I hope that it goes back to that normal. That'll be nice. You know, 90s, you know, and back, and you know, that'll be nice. Not saying, you know, everything gonna be exactly like that, but that quality of women, I would like to see that come back around. Not saying it's done around. I know it's not that many of them, or you know, it's mostly the opposite. The ones you don't take serious, the ones you really don't want. But I just hope that at some point the women will go back. You know, majority of them will go back to that classy style woman, right? You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with having your own personality. That's great. You know, most women don't even have they just copy each other. But it would be nice to go back to that time to where women had their own personality, they had their own style. You know, they was feminine, they was fit, they was friendly. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be nice to get to see that as a norm instead of what we got going on now. So again, you know, the guys that was alive during that time and that was dating in a relationship, I hope y'all found someone. And you know, like, the women had it going on, man. Like, it's like, damn. But you know, that's the thing too, because a lot of the food, you know, back then, it was just regular, it was real food. And of course, as time went on, they started to modify the food, don't get me wrong, but they came later on. And by the time they really started to ramp up, it was too late for the women to really be exposed to that, because they was already living a lifestyle to where, you know, their mom cooked at home, they cooked at home, you know, and then the food they were getting outside of home, it was real food. But most of those women back then, they cook, because, you know, it's basic economics. Like, the mom taught them, they trained them how to be a good woman. They got some who kind of strayed away, but they told them the basics, how to take care of themselves, you know, how to act when you're around, you know, when you're around guys, you know, all this stuff, how to cook, how to clean, all this stuff. You know what I mean? A lot of them was working back then too. So their mom and their dad kept them on that straight path to be a successful woman. You know what I mean? Not out here being a loosey-goosey, even though you did have some out there, but that wasn't the norm. Now the norm is, you know, these women out here being a loosey-goosey, and the abnorm is a good girl. That's very hard to find. So just wanted to take that clip. But what's going on now? The food, well, the product. That's what the CEOs call it. They don't call it food no more. They call it a product. It's all, you know, juiced up, modified in all kind of ways, not even real. Everything is artificial, all these dyes. So that would transform us to look a certain way. You know, that's the thing too. We got a lot of these chemicals and stuff that they put in these, into these fake this processed food, it's causing a lot of side effects. That's why you got a spike in obesity. That's why you got a spike in the Down syndrome. You got a spike in what's the other one? We got the memory loss. We got Alzheimer's disease, a spike in that. Of course, spiking cancer because it's the food. I keep telling you guys, the food. You gotta be very careful what you put in your body. On top of that, you gotta exercise. You gotta cleanse your body too. You know what I mean? Not saying everybody's gonna eat 100% clean, but it's stuff that you can take to cleanse your body. You do that every quarterly or every 2 years or every year, however you want to do it. But it's so important the majority of the food that you eat has to be real food, has to be clean food. And on top of that, you gotta exercise. You just can't get away from that. I know a lot of y'all want to take these pills, stuff like that, try to cut corners. You can't fake a healthy life. You can't. Either you got it or you don't. So we have all this food that that we're eating, and of course, no one's getting exercise. Everybody's killing destroying their bodies by drugs and alcohol and constantly staying up. You ain't getting a good night's sleep. Stress constantly. That's why you're going bald at 6 years old. All that stuff is causing. It's causing people to transform into something that's not desirable. That's normally what it is. You know what I mean? So on top of that, you got these surgeries, and a lot of times these surgeries, normally surgery is due because you've been injured or you've been disfigured in some kind of way. But a lot of these women that's getting these surgeries, nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them. It's somebody out there for everybody, right? Like I might think this person is probably the best person, best woman in the world, or whatever. The next guy may be like, nah, she's okay, and then vice versa. It's plenty of guys that I work with it. Like, oh man, she a 10. Then when I see her, I'm like, nah, that's a solid 5. But hey, if you think she a 10, go ahead with it. So that's what I'm saying too. Beauty's an eye of the beholder, but that has a lot to do with it. And then you got these new people coming out talking about they're a woman, they're a man. It wasn't like that back then. You know what I mean? It's just a woman knew she was a woman, she ran with it. A guy knew he was a guy, he ran with it. And then for the most part, those people took care of themselves. Then they had a lot of exercise too. So that plays a part. But again, I ain't want to babble, but I wanted to babble. I just wanted to, just give props to the women that was back in the day. It's like, man, yeah, they really had it going on. And then of course back then it didn't take much. Now, average female, I think she got to get 18 different surgeries, and she got to bleach her skin, or she got to get tans and all this stuff. Like that's not gonna make you look better. Now you're gonna have somebody who's just down bad, no matter what you do. Oh yeah, you look. But those same dudes that are asleep with a trans and say that he's not gay. But just wanted to put that out there. If you guys, not saying you gotta just follow my kind of, my routines or stuff I'm into, but take your time and look at these old music videos back in the 90s, the 80s, and 70s, and you'll see what I'm talking about. They did not fine. They just beautiful. It's like, God dang, they just beautiful. And granted, that's when a lot of people started coming from different parts of the world. They are, America, not just America. You got a lot of people in Britain and all this stuff like that. And I watch any popular song that came out in the 80s. I'm watching. So it's literally all over. But just looking at the women, it's like, God dang, man, they just had it going on. But of course, good food, you just take care of yourself. Real food, they had that. They had real food, and they took care of themselves. So now they put stuff in our food for we just never feel we're never full, right? We never feel like we're full. So they put stuff in our food to make it seem like we're always hungry. That's what causes that also. It's not always just, oh, I just eat at Jack in the Box and I just got big off. So no, it's just they put stuff in the food to have you, to keep you hungry. So that's another thing too. But anyway, again, check out a couple of them videos back in the day, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Go look at some popular videos in the 90s, 80s, and 70s. You'll see what I'm talking about. But anyway, anybody who got one of them women back in the day, y'all doing good. Because the women now compared to them, nah, man. Like I ain't saying, I don't want to just shame all of them, but as far as finding some natural good-looking women like that, man, you're gonna be looking. And on top of that, they're just not out there just running around too. But anyway, if you guys agree with me, if you don't agree with me, what's your era of the best good-looking women that you know of? And put it down below. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and no matter what else, take your peace, your pockets, and your purpose.